I just want to thank you so much for your support on the video, on the channel. Thank you for your support on the video and on the channel. So I very much appreciate new subscribers as well. It's so nice to see the channel growing. So this particular live stream is going to be background notes. We're going to prepare to move into our next reading, which is Capricorn's reading. And Capricorn's ruling planet is Saturn. Okay, and Capricorn's house in astrology is the 10th house. So let's see. All right, and I'm looking through some literature here to refer to. So earlier we had introduced a publication in regard to investing. $247. And so far there were 3 houses that were named that were going to be important to look at when looking at investments and business, like in an entrepreneurial endeavor, and investments including gambles and taking risks. So that was the 2nd house, the 5th house, and the 8th house. So So when we got into those houses, the readings I feel like were very expanded a lot. The interpretations when getting into those houses expanded a lot, being able to see the investment part of it. So now I'm on the lookout to look. Hey, thank you for stopping by. Good afternoon to you. I wanted to look at the other houses in more depth and see what we can glean from those houses. So getting into the 10th house. So let's see. I'm just going to take some time to read up about it. So let's see. According to the 10th house. So I'm going to look at this book here that I picked up. It's a used book. And so looking at chapter 16, let's see, it's going to talk to us about the 10th house. It's going to talk to us about the 10th house, 11th house, and 12th house. And they call these houses wishing and hoping. Well, it's kind of good timing since we're in the 10th house. We'll be moving to the 11th house and the 12th house. So let's take a look. I personally was also interested in the 9th house because we just moved out of the 9th house, Sagittarius's house. And when I was reading there, I was feeling the 10 of fire energy. I don't think the 10 of fire actually landed on our reading table, but I was feeling the energy. And that Sagittarius, aka the 9th house, and Saturn. And Saturn is Capricorn's regent planet. So I also wanted to look there. Plus, when you get into Capricorn, the cusp energy is going to be Sagittarius Capricorn cusp, as well as Capricorn having a cusp with Aquarius. So, okay, but let's read about the 10th house here. Okay, so it says, your 10th house is the house of your reputation and your career. And I want to pause there for a moment too, because also being able to see the houses and get into looking at houses for ourselves, like for an example, even if we ourselves are not, we don't have a Capricorn sun for an example, right? But everyone has a natal chart which has every sign and every house in it. So let's see. So in this way, every reading becomes prolific and can have more information available. So let's see. This is another book that I'm looking at here. It says Advanced Astrology for Life. So, and then of course here's another book that I really like, and I mentioned this one a lot. This book is so beat up, but it's about Saturn. See how it's just really been through it. But I really I got that one used too, and it was already falling apart when I got it. So let's see. So I want to help engross all of us, and I'll probably read this repeatedly a lot or refer to it, but I want to read this here and see how it can pull us all in. I'm reading it live with you for the first time, so let's see what it says. It's an introduction here from this book, Advanced Astrology for Life. Balance Your Life with Planetary Power by Constance Stilas, or Stias. There we go. Okay, so anyhow, the introduction. When a person begins to study astrology, part of the fun and appeal is having the inside scoop on yourself, on other people's personalities, and on global events. Doing good. Thank you guys for your support on the channel. Thanks for stopping by and interacting with me in the chat. Thank you for your support on this video. All right, so yeah, when a person begins to study astrology, part of the fun and appeal is having the inside scoop on yourself. It says on other people's personalities and on global events. When learning about the signs, it is delightful to find that people actually do typify their sun sign. By examining the rest of the signs in the chart, you see the complexity of energies at play in an individual. To refine your knowledge, you look at the major aspects or relationships between planets. These are basic building blocks of chart interpretation. A chart is a mathematical fact where the planets were on the, it says where the planets were on the date, time, and place of a person's birth. You can also calculate a chart for a pet or the birth of an airline flight. So basically anything you can put into a chart, right? You can put into an astrological chart. So like for an example, for a second we touched real briefly on the investigation of a trending public figure, Chrisean Rock, who is allegedly going through some investigations in regard to a case, an unaliving of her ex-boyfriend. And so, like, for an example, that case, an astrologer, if they were looking into it, like with forensic astrology, they would plug in the time of the deceased, the time of the unaliving, and they would be able to produce a chart for that, and then look at planet positions and etc., and get some additional information. Now, briefly, I actually did that. Like, I did that because that information is published online, the time of the deceased, and ironically, there are a lot of placements that have like a Pisces resonance in there. But anything, any event, you can plug into this data. You could plug the data in and calculate a chart. So it says the advent of astrological computer programs has been a boon for astrology because it has made the mathematical calculation so easy. So now anyone with an astrology software program to access the web can retrieve astrological information. So throughout this book, the author will assume that a person has access to his or her chart and an astrology software program for more advanced techniques. I have given simple computer instructions for all the techniques I describe, the author says, and the author continues to say here that she recommends using a WinStar by Matrix as a good software choice. So there's a free, he said, when am I going to be starting the reading? Well, I probably will start the reading in another live stream that's going to have all signs in the title, all signs reading. This one I wanted to take a pause and look deeper into the and just do some background research, and also start to prepare to look deeper into the houses and their meanings, so that as we proceed through our readings on the channel, we can start to glean more from each house, even if and when our sun sign is not in the particular house that we're reading for. Because all of us, everyone has a 10th house, for an example. So we're going to get into Capricorn's reading, but everybody has an association with the 10th house and Capricorn energies. So this live stream, I just wanted to pull back for a second and start looking at some background notes to prepare us to move forward in the 10th house, Capricorn's house. That's a good question. Thanks for asking. So let's see. So there's also available. I like to go to astro.com to access their. They have on their website a portal where you can generate a natal chart or an astrological chart. I like to go there, and it's free. So let's see. And let's see. All right, so I just wanted to read that little introduction to kind of get what that author has to say about natal charts in general, and see what it had to say about gleaning general information from a chart. Now back to chapter 16 in the other textbook that we were looking at here, chapter 16, and this complete idiot's guide is gonna look at the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th house. Okay, so let's see what it has to say about the 10th house. The 10th house, they say the neon lights are bright. Okay, bye-bye, sweetie, bye. Thanks for stopping by. All right, it says, so your 10th house is the house of your reputation and your career, your own personal Broadway. In other words, just as the 4th house is where you'll find your home, the 10th house, its opposite, is where you'll find everything outside your home. Your profession, your community standing, your social role, and what others think of you. Some call this the house of ambition, aspiration, and attainment. So it's interesting to note that it's also the house where you'll find your dominant parent. Still, this house is where you'll achieve success through your own efforts. It's a reflection of your image and achievements as shown by the rewards that you receive for your position in life. Just as your fourth house, and again, the fourth house is Cancer's house, says just as your fourth house cusp is your lower heaven or the IC, your 10th house cusp is your mid-heaven or the MC. All right. So it's getting a little bit technical, but let's bear with them. It says this means that this house contains things so obvious about you that they can be seen from a distance. Successfully navigated, your 10th house will give you a sense of fulfilling your destiny and an enormous sense of personal satisfaction as well. Your 10th house is naturally associated with goal-oriented Capricorn on its cusp, and its planetary ruler is Sirius, responsible Saturn. So naturally, the 10th house also represents positions of power and authority, and especially high government posts. Your 10th house, it says your 10th house sign describes your ambitions and how you express yourself socially through your profession and community standing. Your 10th house ruler describes where and how you build your social reputations and position. The location of Capricorn, the correspondent natural sign in your chart, shows what areas of your life give you your greatest responsibilities and a need for respect from others. So if your sun is in the 10th house, which would be Capricorn's, the one people who have a Capricorn sun, they're Capricorns. It says a 10th house sun indicates a strong sense of self, a will to succeed, and a desire to make a difference in the world. 10th house sun couples ambition with power. This is a good placement for someone interested in politics or administrative work, or someone who wants to take on a position of authority and leadership. There's both drive and ambition here, as well as the desire for social status. Although this placement needs power, there might not be the ability to handle it appropriately. Someone with a sun in the 10th house might use unethical methods to gain power or position. It says this might sound familiar when you think of some politicians. In general, however, this placement is careful not to taint its responsibility or dignity. Okay, thank you again for your support on the channel and on the video. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Yeah, so this book is really cool because it's actually going to break down the 10th house and Capricorn energy, even in the different planets. It's going to take the time to talk about those who have their sun in the 10th house, but then also the moon, Mercury in the 10th house. It's going to talk about Venus in the 10th house, Mars in the 10th house, Jupiter, Saturn in the 10th house, Uranus in the 10th house, Neptune in the 10th house, and it really breaks it down. Pluto and also the North Node. So when the North Node is in the 10th house, the South Node is in the 4th house, Cancer's house. All right, so it breaks it down like that. So if I could take a pause, because like I said, I also wanted to touch on Sagittarius, since we just left the 9th house. And I was really wondering, when we were in that 9th house reading for Sagittarius, about Sagittarius's position in Saturn energy. It was like, is it at its detriment, or is it what is, I don't think it's exalted there, but I wasn't really sure. So I want to look at that, guys. And so when I got there to look at Sagittarius, so here's the book that I'll be looking at there. I love this book. You guys could tell it's been through a lot, but again, I got it used, because I usually don't tear through my books like that. I don't like writing in my books or anything. But anyhow, let's see. So to look at Sagittarius, Saturn and Sagittarius, and these are concepts, guys, that you might find me repeating throughout the life of the channel, because we've read this before. But I feel like it's something that, like, when you read it every time, there's newness to glean from it. So Saturn in Sagittarius and the ninth house, since we just left the ninth house. All right, so it says the ninth house is considered to be the house of long journeys, both those made by the physical body and those which increase consciousness and broaden the perspective of the mind. I love that, the way that they're articulating that, right? Because when I get into the ninth house, I'm like, okay, guys, we're in the ninth house, and this house generally it embodies travel, and it also talks about higher learning on all fronts, on all aspects of learning. The ninth house deals with that. The way that this chapter just broke it down, it says the ninth house is considered to be the house of long journeys, both those made by the physical body and those which increase consciousness and broaden the perspective of the mind. You see how we get there to talk about travel and higher learning? Continuing on, it says here, in the basic interpretation, which is traditional, the duality of the Gemini Sagittarius axis and the third and ninth houses. So, yeah, the third house is Gemini's house, the ninth house is Sagittarius's house. Let's see what they're going to say about this relationship. It says, may be clearly seen, for third house movement related to Mercury deals with the gathering of information, while ninth house movement related to Jupiter pertains to the discovery of meaning, which emerges when the information is finally put into perspective. See there? Wasn't that beautiful? When we get into the third house, that's the house of communication, information, logic, technology, right? But in the ninth house, that energy is there in regard to the information. And how did they put it? It pertains to the discovery of meaning, which emerges when the information is finally put into perspective. These are, as has often been suggested, the two aspects of that perceptive function which we term the mind. The ninth house is also the house of law by traditional definition. And just as there are two kinds of journeys, those of the body and those of the mind, there are also two kinds of laws. Man-made laws deal with the structuring of society so that it develops along the most positive lines and offers the maximum of protection to its members. Spiritual laws are not very well understood because they can only be apprehended by their reflection in human behavior. They might, in psychological terms, be called archetypes in the specific sense that Jung means this word. These laws are simply inherent in life rather than a product of life. In fact, they are perhaps, in a more esoteric sense, the reason for life. Pause, because there was something else I felt was interest. Oh, it's talking about laws. It's talking about laws, right? So I wanted to pause there because I'm like, okay, now this is an aspect, this is an area where an astrologer and or a seer would look to get some information about law. It's like, let's put a pin in that for a second. And I am wondering, because we're looking at Sagittarius and Saturn energy. So is it just with that planetary association? Sagittarius, and Saturn energy is where we would find the law. I'm going to put a pin in that because where else would you naturally look to find information about the law? The first thing that comes to mind is the Justice in tarot and the Judgment in tarot. When those two cards come in a reading, there's something having to do with a ruling being made in judgment also. So let me just hold for a second to take a closer look at the judgment card. Let me see here, because Justice has an association with Libra, but what about the Judgment? Oh, of course, guys. the the Judgment's association is with Saturn. That's the 21st major arcana. Wait. What I'm saying is true, but that's actually the world. That's the world. Hold on, let me keep looking though. The 21st, because the Judgment, that's the 20th. There we go. Huh, that's interesting. That's Uranus. Let's see, Magician. No, that's not Uranus. That's Pisces. Is that Pisces? That's Pisces, y'all. Wow, Judgment, Pisces energy. Wait. No, let me pause for a second, guys. I'm going through it. I think that is Pisces, though. But hold on. The reason I'm saying that is because it's actually Pluto. Yeah, that's Pluto. Pisces has an association with Pluto. Pardon me. Thank you for your patience. But does also... Who else shares Pluto? Let me see. The first thing that's coming to my mind is Scorpio, but all right, so yes, taking a moment here, this live stream, just taking a moment to pause, to do some background research. And chart the big picture, your personal planets. Let's see how your planets work together. Let's see. 43. Page 43. The sun, the moon, Mercury. Let's see, Venus, Mars, let's say, well, they didn't even mention, hold on. I'll wait for another day here. That's why, man. Back in the day, we had to rely on going to the library. Let me see. But thank God for good old internet, because, sheesh. Pluto. Let's see. Pluto and astrology. Let's see here. Just kind of wondering, but Pluto here. Let's see. What sign governs Pluto? So, Scorpio. Okay. Now, I just wanted to double check and make sure. I said Pisces at first, but Scorpio is what dominantly, in modern astrology, Pluto is recognized as the ruling planet of Scorpio. Oh, so, I'm still thinking Pisces does have an association too, which would be the 12th house. But that's hangman energy. And I think that's true too. So I'm just gleaning the different houses, the different archetypes that would deal with judgment, that would deal with justice and such. So far I am picking up. Let me know if you follow, if you agree. So as far as Pisces energy, right? The tarot archetype for Pisces is the hangman. So that, can you feel the judgment there? Can you feel like, as far as a ruling, a judgment in the divine context? Then also it said Scorpio. So in tarot, Scorpio, the 13th major arcana, the death card. Can you feel the spiritual judgment inherent there? You know? Um, And there's a legalistic component in the 8th house too. I'm just trying to pull and trying to feel it out. The legalistic component, though, the first thing that comes to my mind, however, is the shared assets, shared resources governed in Scorpio's house, the 8th house. So that would be like taxes, and also inheritances, just to name a couple that come to the forefront of the mind. But anyhow, I think I spent enough time there. Let's keep going, because there's so much ground to cover, and I feel like as we advance, it'll settle into place even more. Even with others contributing, maybe it'll just land on in our analytic. Somebody else might be able to expound upon it, and it'll just come across a timeline. But let's see what else it has to say here. So yeah, I will pause there, because looking at the 9th house and reading about Saturn in Sagittarius, it says the 9th house is also the house of law. I'm glad that okay, so it says the 9th house is also the house of law by traditional definition, and just as there are two kinds of journeys, those of the body and those of the mind. So it's interesting to think of it, because when, again, we're thinking about the 9th house, we're thinking about travel, and we're thinking about higher learning. But I like it how it breaks it down even more to help us associate and resonate. This is travel of the body and travel of the mind. There are two kinds of laws. Man-made law deals with the structuring of society, and it says spiritual law are not very well understood because they can only be apprehended by their reflection in human behavior. And what else it says? These laws are simply inherent in life rather than a product of life. In fact, they are perhaps, in a more esoteric sense, the reason for life. Unfortunately, we know all of these laws apart from the discoveries of modern psychology. Okay, so it says, unfortunately, all we know of these laws apart from the discoveries of modern psychology is that interpretation given by theology, which calls these archetypal patterns the will of God, and then attempts to interpret this will according to a particular dogma or ideology, period. It goes on to say the entire subject of law, whether it is the instinctual patterning of nature, whether it is the intellectual and moral structuring of man, or whether it says, or a less tangible and more ambiguous pattern of life in general. It goes on to say, is at best an abstruse subject and not one to be defined in the few paragraphs. Not one to be defined in a few paragraphs. It is likely that there is no proper definition. The realm of the ninth house, however, is an abstruse and subtle realm because it is connected with the intuition and with the intuitive perception of the laws of living and being and consciousness. And an understanding of this house, which requires the exercise of the intuition. I feel like that's what we were doing just a moment ago. Filling it out. Oh, I don't know. I didn't read the comment that was retracted. Let's see, was it the greeting that came earlier? All right. Hey guys. And so it says, in an understanding of this house, which requires the exercise of the intuition, can provide the key not only to the overall patterns of humanity, but to the meaning behind a single life. Although a cadent house, and therefore considered by tradition to be weak, the cadent houses are the birthplaces of thought and the expression of a meaningful life as it is manifested through the midheaven, and the 10th house has its seeds and the level of consciousness indicated by the ninth. So yeah, I was feeling like that's what was happening when I was just taking a pause, like, let's fill out where else can you find the legalistic qualities, the judgment, the rulings. Let's see. So I know I'm probably getting far out, but Saturn, the ninth house. All right. Well, at least I got a hike going on in that direction. What else did I want to look at? I think that's pretty much. Oh yeah, I wanted to take a look at the investment book to see if there are other houses to be mentioned. And this book right here that we introduced to the channel a couple days ago. Let's see, what other houses? So we went over part 1, section 1, where it mentioned the 2nd house, the 5th house, and the 8th house. So let's see what it says in part 2, choosing a broker. So let's see, after determining that your horoscope is good for speculation, select a well-known member firm of the New York Stock Exchange for your first venture into the stock market world. So this is way back in the day when we dealt more exclusively with brokers. But these days, this has become more electronic and even AI managed, where you can get an online brokerage like It used to be called Scottrade, but now it's like E-Trade, or I don't know, is it a Scottrade? Is it Ameritrade? Anyway, um, those type of online brokerages. So it says, try to find an individual broker with whom you are compatible. I have yet to find a broker who wouldn't give out his birth date and wasn't intrigued by the idea of using astrology in the stock market. That's interesting. That's pretty cool. It says, while it is not the broker's responsibility to advise on which stocks to buy, he may make recommendations of various stocks from time to time. That's interesting because these days, the electronic brokerages and even browsers like Google and Yahoo are notorious for suggesting stocks that are trending. But back in the day, they were saying brokerages would sometimes offer and recommend stocks. And also, I'm still kind of intrigued too about an astrologer asking their potential broker for their birth date so they could plug it into their chart, and we already know that she was looking in the second house to see the planets, to see their disposition towards investments and speculation. That's what it was. She was looking in their charts to see their aspects about making speculations. I just find that interesting. But so now that we're more in modern times, we're more inclined to use AI. AI compiles data from like everywhere, right? And computes it and lets us know which stocks are trending. Interesting. So let's see here. What else does she say? She says, while it is not the broker's responsibility to advise on which stocks to buy, he may make recommendations of various stocks from time to time. At such time, you should be aware of whether stocks recommended coincide with influences in your chart. That's interesting that she's sharing that she would also use her own natal chart to look at the stocks itself, the commodity, and look at the resonance and the relationship between themselves. So anyhow, she goes on to say, a favorable relationship between two horoscopes can be quite advantageous. In comparing the charts of broker and client, look primarily to the general tenor and attitude of the individuals. For instance, if you have Mars square Jupiter. Okay, pause for a second. Now she, the author here, is sharing a technique to look for compatibility for herself and her potential broker. And she's going to share how to look at the charts and how to see what's advantageous. And hey, Sweetie Pie in the chat. Hi, you guys. Thank you for your support on the channel and on the video. Also, these type of comparisons, some people, you know what I'm saying, who are in a relationship and they're both familiar with astrology or eager to look at astrology, they're not spooked about it. They'll look at their own natal charts and start to put their own natal charts together and see how advantageous their compatibility is or not. So it says, it says a favorable relationship between two horoscopes can be quite advantageous. In comparing the charts of broker and client, look primarily to the general tenor and attitude of the individuals. For instance, if you have Mars square Jupiter and are inclined to take chances, select a broker who is stable with possibly a strong Saturn or Taurus influence. He can temper your enthusiasm and curb your tendency to buy on impulse. Of course, if his Saturn or Taurus does not harmonize with your chart, impatience on your part could result. And she also suggests check where his planets fall into your natural houses. Although his benefic planets and the sun or moon in your fifth house may be beneficial, Be alert to the fact that Jupiter can cause over optimism. As for the malefics in your 5th house, and oftentimes the 2nd, pay particular attention to Neptune, the planet of illusion. This can give a pie in the sky attitude collectively, whereas all stock purchases should be made on the basis of foresight and logical considerations. So again, let's see, it talks about, hey loved one, just in case you're here in the video, thank you for calling. I will have to call you back, loved one. Deep into this study right here. So let's see, what was it saying? As for your malefics in the 5th house, and oftentimes the 2nd, pay particular attention to Neptune, the planet of illusion. This can give a pie in the sky attitude collectively, whereas all stock purchases could be made on the basis of forethought and logical considerations. Okay. So it kind of seems like somebody with that disposition might be easily persuaded. So it suggested that they would do more analysis and base their speculations in more founded research and information. So Jupiter is being referred to a lot. Saturn. Oh, it's going to talk about Saturn here coming up. So let's see, it talked about Neptune having a pie in the sky, maybe illusions. So then, let's see, Uranus can result in ups and downs with respect to money matters. With the broker's Pluto in your 5th house, he may be a bit too persuasive and convincing you to purchase a particular stock against your better judgment. And it says his Saturn can serve as a disappointing or dampening influence, or it can also provide stability. As an example, I had one broker whose Saturn fell in my 2nd house, trine my midheaven, and sextile my ascendant. She says his Saturn made no other aspect to my chart, while many times his attitude convinced me not to make a certain purchase, which would have been beneficial. He also kept me out of a lot of hot water when my gambling instincts were at their peak. Of course, no relationship is ever perfect, and brokers are too busy to permit you to collect birth data on every salesman. So, if after a trial period of doing business with a broker you do not feel comfortable with them, then get yourself another broker. Now the other section is going to talk about which stocks to purchase. I'm kind of interested what she would have to say about that. Which stocks to purchase, picking the right stock, and then it even looks at the horoscope of a corporation. That's interesting too, right? Okay, so let's end there for the suspense, because that's interesting and I hope to look into it, but it doesn't have much to do with Saturn and or the 10th house. Okay, so let's see, what else did I want to touch on? I think that might be pretty much everything I wanted to touch on before getting into our reading. Yeah, so I thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your support on the video, on the channel, for your subscriptions, for your interaction with me in the chat. Signing off for now on this one. I'll be back to get into our reading for the 10th house, aka Capricorn. And then this is still the all signs reading, so we'll go from Capricorn to Aquarius to Pisces That will take us all the way through the houses today. All right, see you on the next one. Till next time, peace.